See You in Queens is a Modern Spaces production. I'm Rebekah, marketing manager for Modern Spaces and producer for this show. Eric Benaim, co-founder and president of Modern Spaces, is the podcast host. Please note that while we welcome and invite all guests into our studio, their views do not necessarily reflect that of our own company. While content will not be explicit in nature, sometimes colorful language will be used. Listener discretion is advised.
Halt! Take us to Queens at once.
A wild rumor swept the nation this afternoon. It was vouchsafed that the New York Mets had become baseball champions of the world.
20 votes are all that separate Melinda Katz and Tiffany Caban in the Queens DA Democratic primary.
Come to Queens. It's cool now.
Condos in Queens.
It's a great day for New York City. It's an extraordinary day for Queens.
Welcome back to See You in Queens, the podcast. We are so excited to share this one with you. Eric Benaim, our host, spoke with Marie Cecile Flageul and Jonathan Cohen, who is better known by his artist name of Mears. They are the founders of 5 Pointz, an iconic mural space in Long Island City, which, if you are a resident of Queens or New York City, you probably already know that. They share the whole story behind the rise and eventual demolishing of this beloved Queens landmark, which you might not know that whole story. And this includes the precedent-setting legal battle that lasted for years. You can learn more about Marie and Mears and their work by visiting the show notes, where you can find links to their websites and Instagram feeds. Thank you to Marie and Mears for your time and contribution to our favorite borough. Listeners, if you enjoy this episode, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts and share it with a friend. Thank you, and see you in Queens.
So thank everybody for joining us on See You in Queens. And today's guest is Marie and Mears from the 5 Pointz crew. Very excited to have them here. Welcome, Mears and Marie. How are you guys?
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being a guest today. Very excited to have you guys on the show. As you know, I'm huge fans of 5 Pointz. It was really like a huge institution, not just in Long Island City or New York City, but I think the world. I used to go to see all the taggers and writers do their work. I mean, for over 20 years at least, I would think. Every time I go to PS1, a lot of times I would go to the warm-up parties, and maybe before I would just hang out, or if I had a bad day, I remember I was living in Forest Hills, and if I had a bad day, I would jump on the train and just go, and on a Saturday, and just like walk around and watch all the artists do their work. When I was like 14, 15, I used to write myself. I wasn't a graffiti artist. I was more of a bomber. But I definitely appreciate the art. So, first I'd like you to talk to me more about the history of 5 Pointz exactly, if you can get into that.
That's going to be one for Mears, for sure.
So, what up, everybody? Mears One, the founder, curator of 5 Pointz. 5 Pointz, I painted at the property, the building, several times. And in 2002, the opportunity arose to take over and kind of curate this project. I met with the landlord, had a brief meeting with him, told him I would be willing to take the task, put some thought into what the name would be. I picked 5 Pointz. I didn't want to necessarily choose a word that kind of locked us into one label. 5 Pointz is kind of celebrating all 5 boroughs, as well as all 5 elements of hip hop coming to one place to celebrate the art and music culture. And that's what stuck. And 5 Pointz was about 11 years, and it grew to become a humongous attraction for people all over the world to come see, and one of the biggest attractions in Queens, I'd say, and highly visible from the train line. So whether people took the time to come down and see the building or just saw it from the train, they were in for a treat every time they went by.
And how often did you guys like change up the art and stuff?
Some walls were permanent. Some were rotating. We did have a high demand for artists that wanted to paint. There is no legal outlet in the city of New York where artists could come and paint legally. And this was that. So artists that were of a higher caliber obviously got to have long-lasting to permanent spots, and artists that were of a lower caliber, were on a more rotating basis. Sometimes an artist, who really came correct would kind of have claims to a wall, and then I would allow them, if at their choice, if they chose to kind of revamp or recreate something, raising the bar for themselves and for 5 Points.
And you guys didn't just have like graffiti, because I mean, I've been to so many of the hip hop events at 5 Points. You had, I would go there to see breakdancers and DJs and rappers and pretty much you guys had like everything over there.
Well, pretty much the breakdancers or MCs or beatboxers or DJ would come and hang out, just like you know, any creative branch from hip hop would come and get lost in the murals and in the process. And being that Mears, as a kid in Queens, when you were listening to house and DJing, he was breakdancing and even rhyming. So it happened kind of organically where they asked, because if you remember the loading dock, it was kind of like a theater. We had a stage, which was the actual dock. And starting 2010, we got super organized, and we would give about 48 events per summer, always free.
Yeah.
So breakdancing competition, battles, MCs battle, the Subway series, which was basically beatboxers and MCs getting on the 7 train and ending at 5 Points and doing those like beautiful cipher circle of improvisation. And I guess, one of the biggest event was obviously 40 years of hip hop with Central Park Conservancy, where we hosted DJ Kool Herc. It was hosted by Marley Marl, who used to spin every single Saturday for free, starting to.
I think I was at that event, but I remember going to see Marley Marl all the time.
Marley Marl, who is still living in Long Island City, so shout out to Marley and Queensbridge, of course. And it just grew. And 2013, definitely. DJ Kool Herc was 8,000 people throughout the day, and he span, and people were painting, and we had break dancers from all over the world that were breakdancing while he was spinning with Marley. So it was a beautiful thing, and it was free. It was very important.
The ultimate thing that kind of was the best reward was that the people that inspired me to get into hip hop, it came full circle, and I inspired them to be a part of something I created. So
yeah, I thought. You're a legend, Mears. So big ups to Mears.
My life's super easy calling me legend.
Good luck to you, Marie, tonight.
Thank you.
But you guys also had a lot of artists coming from not just New York. They came from like everywhere, all over the world. Yeah.
They would save up their money for, like, that would be the trip they'd want to do for a year, and they would save.
Yeah, to be able to pay. And we had artists like Crime and Shine from Scotland that every year would come to paint at 5 Points. They got engaged at 5 Points. Owen DP from New Zealand, who did the iconic Biggie in the back wall, he got married on the rooftop of 5 Points in 2013. Wow. We had, of course, France, Japan, Korea. We had artists from Russia and the ex-USSR, from like Chechnya, from everywhere. It was mind-blowing.
We hosted the International Meeting of Styles as well, which
in 2010.
Writers from all over the world came.
Wow. So I'll tell you a quick little story. I got married 6 years ago, and we go to our
2 kids.
Yeah, and we go to our honeymoon, and we went to Greece for our honeymoon.
Yep.
And then the last stop was Athens.
Yep.
And I had been to Athens before, and we go to this one area where there's like a outdoor market, flea market, whatever. And then in Athens market, there was like a graffiti store, just like all kinds of cans, and you had to go downstairs. And I went downstairs, and I was just like I saw crazy cans from all over the world.
Yep.
And I bought some, obviously, as like memento or souvenir or whatever. And I started talking to the guy, and I'm like, we started talking about graffiti, and I'm like, he's like, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from New York. He's like, 5 Points, like in Athens, Greece. The guys are like, 5 Points with a big building with all the graffiti. I'm like, I live in that neighborhood. So it was crazy.
actually that store where you went, you may remember there is a wall that's all tagged up by artists from all over the world. So remember, and one of the biggest legend of graffiti in New York, Taki 168, is Greek. And he tagged that store.
Wow. Okay. Crazy. Yeah. Small world. But yeah, look, I'm on my honeymoon on the other side of the world, and people like knew about 5 Pointz. A really great place. So here, I want to go into a little deep. When did you guys first get word that the owner was going to demolish the building?
We didn't really get word from the owner. So we saw on Facebook from the community board that there was going to be a public hearing to discuss the GNM property variance application. And that was kind of the first time it was kind of concrete that there was going to be potentially a redevelopment. And the one advice you gave me, you were like, just monitor the Department of Building and just look. And if there is no permit for demolition, you guys are good. Mm-hmm. So technically that hearing took place in June of May 2013 at PS1 was the first community board hearing. And then the second one was in June in their location in Sunnyside.
Did you approach him and try to see, hey, can we keep the building and build on top, or was there any kind of like talk to trying to like save the building?
I think there was very limited communication
in general throughout the years, let alone towards the end.
And since he didn't reach out and said, hey guys, there's going to be a community hearing, I just want you to know from me, and not found out on Facebook or in a newspaper. It gave us a sense that there was no kind of communication possible. And we attended the presentation from the architect team and his son, David, at the time. And, they kept on saying, oh, yeah, they're going to come back. But Eric, you work on some of the most beautiful and interesting real estate projects in Queens. Even if you put art in a residential building, when people pay high rent, the art is for them, so it's not for the community. Mm-hmm. And we found out later that one architectural firm had offered to build atop the base way later. I think we found out in 2014, 2015, but that is more costly. And that was not an option anyway, I think, for him. He felt that I gave you the space, which is fair, and now I'm taking it back, which is fair. What's sad is, obviously we all know what happened, and all the art was lost.
So once the community board hearing was happening and you guys hear all this, what started transpiring? Were you like, what's going on? Is there a timeline or anything like that?
Well, if I remember correctly, which I do, no, there was no timeline because the variance was, kind of the big thing. So there was many process. So you had like 2 community hearing, you had community board votes, community board voted against. And not because they wanted to preserve 5 Pointz. They voted against for other issues they felt. Then Queensborough president at the time endorsed the projects. Then it went to the Commission of Building of New York City downtown. We attended that hearing and that got approved. And these are all the steps. And finally, the final basically was City Council. And there was a public hearing. People came from all over the world to testify, and we're supposed to get a second one, then a vote. And unfortunately, a vote occurred, and a lot of the elected officials were assured by our representative in Queens, Jimmy Van Bramer, that there was going to be space for artists, that there were going to be galleries, that everything was taken care of, and that there was an agreement in between 5 Pointz, Mears, and the developer, which was not the case. And in the same time, don't forget, we were Mears was technically a tenant. So as this is going on, there is also housing papers. They are eviction notice that are being dropped in August. And pretty much this is how everything started, is we got a paper saying we had to be out, but it didn't really say when. And all of the tenants, because there were a lot of paying tenants still in the building, residential and commercial. And the attorney who took pro bono and decided to represent us for our legal tenancy in the building came to an agreement. And the agreement was that we had till December 2013, and we were legal on premises till December 2013. And at the same time, you know, she presented to us a law named VARA, Visual Artists' Rights Act.
Wow.
And that's how everything started.
So that's when also the lawsuit started?
So the first thing that started was, if you remember, so City Council voted yes to the variance. There was still no demolition permit. Nothing was, you know, set in stone. But what our legal team at the time did was, which is your right, ask for an injunction. So basically in front of a judge, facts were presented. And it was complicated. And it was complicated even for the judge to fathom, because it's kind of like, you want to protect the art of the artist on the Visual Rights Act, which basically says, and it's important for people to understand this, because I still read like, oh my God, I have kids tagging my house and they're going to sue me if I clean up. No. 5 Points was a legal program, and every single piece that went up on the building was sanctioned. So basically what it says is, if you're going to have to take down your building, or if you have to change its appearance and you need to let go of a mural, you need to have a conversation with an artist. And you need to give the artist 90 days to photograph, document. And if the artist feels that they can save the piece and it's a torn down, then it's at the expense of the artist to remove the artwork.
That's the law.
That's the law. That is a law. And it's at the expense of the artist. So all you have to do is you basically send a letter or call the artist or send him an email, but sending a letter is better. And you say, hey, you have 90 days to document your piece, or you have 90 days to figure out how to raise funds to remove the artwork, because I'm going to, you know, bring down the building, which was the case in 5 Points.
Yeah, and there are artists or people who actually do take apart buildings for art, like Banksy, for example.
But before Banksy, the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, but exactly, but another one, yeah.
Iconic pieces of the Berlin Wall, and a lot by like a French graffiti artist, including one which is sitting in a courtyard off Madison Avenue in Manhattan.
Yeah, I know that one.
And we know, because of Banksy, a lot of techniques had been like kind of determined. There were a Keith Haring mural, Lower East Side, which was removed piece by piece and put back together. So it was possible. So the injunction was our lawyers saying, hey, this cannot happen. This artwork cannot be destroyed. It needs to be preserved. And the judge basically followed the law to the T. And he said, in the United States, as a judge in federal court, I cannot have the right of the artist overstep the right of property owners. So he's like, I cannot prevent this gentleman to do as he pleased with his building. That being said, and based on what we know about the law, I would like for a conversation to happen, and I would feel and appreciate, and I think the court would appreciate, if the developer gives the time to the artist to do everything they need to do. So I cannot grant an injunction. I cannot prevent him from doing what he wants to do with the building, but I think it's important for the artist to be given the right amount of time to document, organize themselves, and remove whatever is removable, knowing that the building was going to get destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. So we got out of court. This was what we were told verbally by the judge. And then you always have to wait for the written decision. And unfortunately, before the written decision was uploaded and made public in the court system, and before we were notified, we woke up to the whitewash, November 19th, 2013 at 6:30 in the morning.
That's crazy. I remember waking up in the morning, maybe like at 6 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I do when I wake up, I'm usually the first one that wakes up, I look at my phone, I'm looking at Facebook, and I see like chatter about it. I'm like, what the hell? I wake up my wife and I'm like, what the hell? We get up right away. We put on our clothes and we just head over there.
Yep.
I have to tell you, literal tears.
Yep.
Well, both of us. We were like, we had our dog at the time. We were consoling each other, hugging, literally tears. We started tearing. I mean, I get choked up now just thinking about it. Yeah. It was so emotional just to see that. It was shocking. And also during this whole time, you guys were bombarded with press. This is like everywhere. Like, I mean, every news station, it wasn't even just like local. It was like everywhere. I did some interviews myself because of this. I was getting calls from like European papers or whatever. Yep. Right. And you guys, it was just like everywhere. It was just like 5.5. And like every channel was literally 5.5 points. So it wasn't like a little story someone just like tucked away somewhere. It was international news
coverage.
Yeah, it was like it's really emotional for me because I felt it was for me, it was like a therapy to go there. I can't even imagine what it was for you guys.
It was pretty tough. I was probably more numb and angry.
Yeah.
Seeing people like torn apart and crying was hard.
Yeah.
And they were whitewashing when we got there. So like
they were still going. Yeah.
At the time.
Oh, you saw the guys actually doing it?
Yeah.
I stopped one of the machines. I know how to operate it, so I just hit the stop button to make sure they couldn't continue. And then at that point in time, they knew that we were onto the whitewash. They stopped, and the workers left it alone. Mind you, they did. We could have still saved work after that point, since they didn't.
Oh my God.
And they.
Well, we'll get to that. But also, I don't know if you remember, but there was police protection. And it was not, and it wasn't our local precinct, because, you know, we had a great relationship with the local precincts. They would like come to events. So we also almost got arrested. We enter the loading dock, and this officer comes to us, asks for ID.
Oh, I remember that.
And at the time, I'm like, officer, I don't even have underwear or socks on. You think I have my ID? We're legal tenants. So we called our attorney. They backed off, but they wanted to arrest us for trespassing.
Wow.
When we're legal tenants. And then, I mean, you remember, I mean, obviously it was a super strong DNA and community of LIC. Of course, you showed up, LIC Market, guys from the diners, the owner, one of the owner of Shannon Pot, who does the early shift, Klaus from PS1, like showed up at like 8:45. I mean, and then the press started, and then just people were getting off the 7 train. And as Mears said, you know, it was anger, it was shock. Mears was very strong that day. He was angry, but he was strong. Mm-hmm. I was a mess. I don't think I've cried as much as that day. But we felt anger and sadness, and Mears basically kind of checked himself and was like, we need to do something, and we need to do something peaceful. And we had so much rams of paper in the office that Mears started putting posters all over, so no one would get in trouble. And we just wanted people to write whatever they felt and whatever they thought. And the same way 5 Points started, we wanted it to go out in a creative, peaceful way. So artists, if you remember, by 6 o'clock, we're doing canvas. The neighbor across the street from Manhattan Ignition told Mears, he's like, take my gate, take all my gates. You guys paint. Whatever you want to paint, whatever you have to say, just do it. And that's what the police and candles and police was there, and the police was super like nice and supportive. And you know, when it got fairly dark by 9 o'clock, we all agreed it was very cold that day.
I remember.
The ocean were running high, and then quietly we asked people to leave the premises, and everybody kind of like slowly left, and some of us went to Shannon Pot. Yeah, pretty much. What are you going to do? It was like an Irish funeral, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I remember the candles. I remember the whole thing. We were like, we have in our apartment, we have photos from our wedding photos, if you remember. Yeah. And we took them outside of 5 Points. Yeah. There's some great art over there. Yeah. It's very emotional for me. Yeah. So, and I'm assuming that that's when you started, a different lawsuit started. Am I assuming? That's the main.
The judge basically woke up the same way you woke up and we woke up. Okay. Choose a whitewash. That afternoon, his decision was published.
Wow.
And basically he said, well, now we have to go to trial because of the action of the developer, because he painted and whitewashed the building, because he did not give 90 days. You made your bed, you're going to lay in it. See you at trial.
That's crazy.
So it was the same legal proceeding with the same judge.
Wow. And he was probably pissed off. It's like, listen, I gave my word and you went against me. Like, what the hell? Who does that?
I don't know if he was pissed off, but definitely I think he felt the law was disrespected. And one thing about Judge Block, forget the 5 Points case, in a lot of cases he has sat on, and his vision, he feels one of the most beautiful things in the United States is the legal system, is a right to a lawsuit with a jury, is the lawmakers that fight every day in Washington to write and be the voice of the people and protect every individual in the United States. So he felt it was actually, I think, my understanding was, he was like, I took the time for a week in my courtroom to break down to all parties what the law says. It is not okay when I took that time and I sided with the law, meaning the developer's right, for him to then step all over the artist's right. When all it took and all it would have taken, had that letter been sent 90 days, it was over.
Wow.
There would be no lawsuit. There would have been no trial. There would have been no damages. There would have been the lawsuit solely and the trial solely occurred following the action of the developer, who was warned in court.
Wow. So you're like, now you're going to court. Were there other artists who come up as like witnesses, or what?
21 plaintiffs
that were involved.
Yeah, 21 plaintiffs from United States, Chile, Brazil, Australia, Ecuador. Some artists had to testify via Zoom in the courthouse. So if you remember, this is 2013. The trial only occurred in 2017. So, and that's another thing I think a lot of people are not understanding is being involved in such a case of such magnitude. It's the first time that 21 artists get together. It's an obscure law. It never had been in front of to trial. It had never been in front of a jury. Before that, it's years of legal work, and it's also deposition. Everything goes on the record. Artists get subpoenaed for everything. Mears and I got subpoenaed for everything, and that includes text messages, that includes Facebook chat, like any correspondence we had from, let's say, summer 2013 till the whitewash. If I sent you a message on Facebook and said, "Hey, Eric, Marley is spinning, can you come?" Just because it said 5 points, it's subpoenaed.
Holy cow.
They have the right. So all Facebook chat, whatever, because
6 months before to 6 months after.
Yeah. Because rightfully so, I'm sure, is a defendant. So we planned all of this, and it was a big scheme. And so they were trying to find evidence to say that we had planned this, that the intent was, punitive damages and money, which we never knew you could have money out of this lawsuit.
So, and like you planned basically having the wall cost paint over your building, basically,
yes,
is what they were accusing. Okay.
Of course. We planned all of that.
Okay.
And we planned to have Long Island City, heart of Long Island City, Court Square, by a white building for 13 months after that.
Just for the record, I didn't have one gray hair.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I remember you with brown hair.
Yeah, and with his fro.
I'm glad I still have it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're the court is happening. Again, you're getting international press.
Yeah.
The judge. What happened the day that they came up with their verdict?
So I think we were 27 days in court, just so you know.
Okay.
And as someone who's a businessman, just so you know, you arrive in the morning, you have to check your phone, your computer, and you have to be in the courtroom. So you are disconnected from the entire world. And for the artist, and Mears will be able to talk on this, I'm sure, again, it's not an easy process. They are testifying, and they are being attacked, questioned, their work merit, their character, the impact of what the building was, which is fine, in front of a jury. So for months, we are reliving the whitewash. The images are on a big screen. Each artist have to basically kind of say, yes, I'm a good artist, and this is my resume, and this is what I've done. So it was pretty intense. And then I think toward the middle, Mears had a conversation with our lawyers about the jury.
We initially went with a jury because I didn't feel that a judge would look at the art form and understand it. It's a relatively new art form. The judge is a little older, and I felt a jury would be the way to go because the younger they're in,
to mix the people
more in tune to it. Yeah,
exactly.
And as we were 3/4 along with the trial, I started to kind of look at the complexity of the law and how much goes into it, and kind of had a change of heart and felt after being there every day and listening to the judge and hearing him gauge everything with a fair, open mind, that what was the most important thing to me was the law be correctly dictated and
written
and understood. And I felt that was the most important outcome of this, and asked our lawyers if we could switch. And they, at first were like, well, I think the jury gets it. I think they're on our side and this and that. And I said, I understand that, but I want the law to be written correctly. I want the law to not have any flaws, and I want it to be for the rest of time.
A precedent.
Yeah. And he said, if you want to, that's your right. And if the artists all agree, that's, you guys right, and we will do that. And we did.
So we asked, and then, of course, the defense side, so the developer side, had the right to oppose that, and they agreed. They were like, absolutely, absolutely, let's forget the jury. The jury was, some young, some older. They were definitely more blue-collar type. So I think the defense was like, yeah, let's go with a judge, because the jury is not going to go with like a rich developer,
And then,
so we first got the judge, in fairness, decided not to tell the jury that they were becoming advisory. So we first got the decision from the jury, and the jury found that damages were due to all artists.
Wow.
And then, so that we got called back in court 2 days. They deliberated for 2 days. They asked for more documents. They asked questions. We were called back in for their decision. And then the judge wrote his decision. And I want to say the final decision from the judge, I think, came in February.
Wow. And then that was a year ago, because there was an appeal.
So that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
It's February 2018.
Wow, okay. So that happened, the judge awarded you, I believe it was...
$6.75 million. So basically, so for a piece of art to be protected on the VARA, it has to have recognized stature. And to make it very simple, stature is determined by not three are required, right? So one is recognition by the university body, right? So if an artist can be found in the database of Columbia or Yale or, the academic world, recognize the artist and its career, then it's by the peers in the art world. So gallery owner, auction house, other artists, art press, etc. And then third, which was very interesting for graffiti and street art, cross-section of society. So that means you. It means, a developer, Eric Benaim from Queens, born and raised, living in Long Island City, has posted 28 pictures on his Facebook or Instagram, has shared this amount, and if it's a piece that is in the case, it is all building to stature. If the piece has stature, then you're entitled to awards.
Wow.
And the maximum awards for a destruction that's considered willful is $150,000 per piece. So the judge gave $150,000 for every piece in the case.
Wow.
So that's how it works.
That's a C.
Yeah.
So, okay, you guys get awarded again. It was all over the news. I remember reading about it, seeing it on TV. It was literally international news.
Yeah.
He fights an appeal. Obviously, it's his right to appeal it. He appealed it. It drags on for 2 more years. And you guys have to do it again, basically.
So it's different. So Second Circuit, basically, it was lawyer to lawyer.
Okay.
They filed their argument. So it's always a defense first, and then we answer. So our legal team answered. And then they have pretty much an oral argument in front of 3 judges in Eastern District. And those 3 judges felt that the ruling of the initial judge, Honorable Frederick Bloch, was correct, and all his findings were correct. So they side with the decision of Judge Bloch. So it's a win again.
Nice.
And now the only thing left is Supreme Court.
Okay. Oh, so you still have more court to go.
So then they appealed again to get a hearing in Supreme Court.
Oh, so when does that happen?
So the Second Circuit hearing was August 2019. The decision came in February 2020. And basically with the Supreme Court, the way it works is you have to request to be heard. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening in Supreme Court. It's kind of a big deal. So they put in their request, which is a written argument, a summary made by the defense. And then Supreme Court looks at it and they have no obligation to even hear the case. So they look at the prior decision and everything that was written and done. And in our case, the Supreme Court said, we're not going to hear this case. Second Circuit Court and Federal Court did the right thing. We agree with their findings. Therefore, we are not going to hear your case. So it's over. So
it's completely done?
Yes.
Has it been awarded yet or nothing awarded yet?
No, because now you have legal fees.
Okay.
I still have a chance to lose my hair, dude. Don't worry.
Okay.
But what's important, I think, is on a legal standpoint, this decision written by Judge Block, backed up by 3 judges of the Second Circuit, is in stone, which means that for every artist, forget graffiti and street art, for any visual artist, for even musician, it is a huge win for artists' rights.
It's case law now, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is like, you guys realize that this case and what you guys were involved with is going to be taught now in universities.
It is already
forever.
Yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah. We had this law student from Italy, from Bologna, who came last year to New York, and he reached out to us and we sat down with him and he just sent me his thesis. The problem is it's in Italian. Obviously I'm French, I speak Spanish, so I read through it. I think I understand most of it, but I actually sent it to an Italian friend to translate it for me.
Okay.
But that's his entire paper is on Vara and the 5 Pointz case.
Wow. Insane.
Yeah. In a membrane.
Crazy. so I just got that. So what are you guys doing now? I know you guys have been very active since. You guys have that hotel project. I forgot on Bowery.
Yep. Street art. Yep.
So you did that. You guys doing a bunch of stuff. I see you posting stuff all the time. What's going on in your world right now?
I've been surprisingly, pretty good through COVID. Doing a lot of gearing a little more towards the gallery world. I sold several pieces on my own without having gallery representation. Doing, exterior jobs, painting, trying to, I have a couple of blocks that I do as well. And just enjoying what I do, which is...
I think he has a little bit of peace of mind for the first time in 7 years.
Oh, that's good. I saw also there was a documentary on this whole thing. I remember seeing a documentary like a couple of years ago on it.
Yeah. And I think to us at least, and also because you have to understand we're all going through what's happening and a lot of us have been like secluded at home, our whole life has changed.
Yeah.
Some will say for the better because it forces us to reevaluate everything and value like moments together. But being stuck at home a lot, you have a lot of time to think. And when the papers were like sent to us for the Supreme Court, it brought a lot of anxiety because had that case been heard and let's say had the decision been overturned, the same way this is case law in favor of the artist, it could have been horrible for artists. Yeah. And, that was a big weight to carry on our shoulders. I mean, you remember at the beginning of the case, everybody was like, they're ruining the culture, no landlord, I'm going to partner with them, which is bullshit because you see like art everywhere.
And people still do it, yeah.
Yeah, Hudson Yard, everywhere.
Citizen M.
Yeah, well, our project. So I think now it's kind of like, keep on doing what we've been doing. So when 5 Pointz, was whitewashed, we started 5 Pointz Creates, which is kind of, you can't whitewash the people. So we tried, so in Long Island City, we did Sweet Leaf new location by Queen Plaza. It's a whole tribute to Queens and the talent living in Queens and brewing in Queens. We're about to do his old school store by the Pulaski Bridge. We do the Halloween wall for Gianna every year. Yeah. And trying to do project, also group project, where we get a lot of artists together and keep on doing what we're doing at a different pace. And as you mentioned, I think MOSA for both of us was, and for 21 artists involved in the project was huge because it is, a very big group and firm based in Amsterdam. They own all their properties and their land for their hotel. So they started in Holland, but they're in the UK, they're in Asia, and then now North America. And that partnership with them and them saying, we saw what happened at 5 Points. It's wrong. We want to partner with you.
Yeah.
And paid the artist, paid me the curator, paid the videographer, did a huge opening party, and making sure that people can go and see it for free. It's beautiful.
And to this day, still stay in touch via email, check on us, which is a beautiful term to have someone that's
a true partnership.
Check on you just to see how you're doing. Forget about on that job, just to see how our health is and everything.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear. I mean, I think one good thing that comes out of this whole ordeal, I think, is that this will be cemented in history.
Yep.
And not just lawyers, but artists will be learning about this literally like forever.
Yeah. You'll be able to show picture to your son and be like, that was your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, great legacy, I think. I think the building in itself was a great legacy, and then the victory in the end was a great legacy. You should know that every time I have a photograph of the building. Also, as soon as you walk into my apartment, I have a nice large photograph of the building, and it brings a big smile to my face. And you know that building has made so many thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people happy.
You even had the wallpaper in your office on
Yes, I had the wallpaper. So that photo, I have it hanging on my wall.
Yeah.
And importantly, I just want to say we did it all with love. There was no funding. There was no salaries.
Yeah.
It was a labor of love, which is another unique quality of that building.
Yeah, and it's expensive. I remember going and I would see milk crates full of cans on the floor, and some artists would have 2-3 crates, and spray paint is expensive.
I mean, this weekend they're doing a big group painting that Mears is organizing and curating, and I don't know how many artists. Are you guys going to be 20 more or less?
20 artists.
But and the artists are working in crews, so it's going to be production, as you remember, background characters, lettering with theme, and most of them are spending $700, $800, $900 just for their section of the wall.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not
cool.
a cheap hobby. It may not be as expensive as golf, but close to.
No, very, very, very cool. So now, if any of our listeners want to follow your art, buy some art, how do they get in touch with you, or social media or whatever?
Instagram is @Mears1, or they could email at mears1@5ptz.com.
You can follow 5 Points Create, so it's letter 5 POINTZ creates. There is only one 5 Points. I want to make it clear.
Yes. No, we haven't even talked about that.
There may be banners. There are banners in Court Square on 2 new towers that say rent 5 Points, 5 Points rent. So 5 Points was incorporated as a non-for-profit by Mears solely in 2004. 5 Points with a Z is his project, his company, and the name. 5 Points was never for rent. It's still not for rent. There will never be another 5 Points. And so if you want to see what actually happens with the original founders, it's 5 Points Creates, and you can catch up on all the artists and see what they're doing. And then if you want a little piece of 5 Points, MOSA, so it's Mosa Bowery, MOSABOWERY, which is a museum of street art, free, open every day, 21 floors. And there is now, I even have on Smartify a free tour. So you put your Bose headphone, customized by Mears, provided by the hotel for free, and you hear music and interviews of the artists, and you can enjoy the whole collection.
Very cool. So just one more recap, just for anybody who is not aware, the building is now up, and unfortunately, the developer decided to capitalize on his previous tenants and name it also 5 Points. I hear there's some really bad art inside. But the art is not done by any of the artists.
Has no affiliation whatsoever with 5 Points.
And not by graffiti or street artists, if you ask me.
And listen, art, the more art, the better.
Correct.
Right? If people are going to rent an apartment and they get to enjoy art, great. The problem is, don't milk on the legacy of something you authorize, yes, but you never funded, you never helped, and you never respected. That's
Correct.
Number one.
Yeah.
And then don't misguide people by calling it 5 Points and capitalizing on something that was solely built by Mears that has a huge impact. if artists want to paint there, they can paint there. I would hope they get paid. I doubt they are. I would hope they protect their rights. They may or may not. That's on them. The more art, the better, but not at the expenses of what was 5 Points. And you, more than anyone, you experienced it, you lived it, you were born and raised in Queens. You know what it meant to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a huge, major institution for Queens. So I just wanted to get it out there that the building is completely separate, has no authorization from you. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, glad we cleared that up. Thank you so much. Good to see you
us.
again. Last time I saw you was at the art event like a year ago.
Yeah.
The Queens Cultural.
At the gala.
Yeah.
I'd like to be outside.
Yeah, little shout out to Diana. Make sure people go out, eat at Manducatis, support the local restaurant, put 2 layers of sweaters, put a jacket, dine with an umbrella like Eric did. Spend money, go outside safely, wear a mask, wash your hands, but try to support. There are so many small businesses that are the true core and DNA of Queens, and especially in Island City. And it's important to support these people that are always there for the community and always supporting. So
100%. And at the same token, support all your local artists. And
the good ones.
The good ones, yes. So thank you, Mears. Thank you, Marie, so much for doing the show with us. And for all our listeners, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in Queens. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you for listening to See You in Queens, a business, real estate, and lifestyle podcast from Modern Spaces. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. See you in Queens.